Hi everyone, my name is Shale. I'm the Wellness Chair for UW-ASDA, and today I'm meeting with a group of third years that are going to help us figure out how they study for boards. Everyone in my class, the second years, is a little bit worried, and as we all figured out with the DAT, the best way to kind of relieve some of that stress is to kind of have a plan exactly of what you're going to do. So we'll just go ahead and start with the first question, and then each person can introduce themselves. So first question is just to outline your timeline of studying for the test. Did you have a schedule? Did you pass the mock first? And were you happy with that? So we can start with Micah.
Hi everybody, I'm Micah. I'm a third year now, which is awesome. I didn't really have a super structured schedule when I was studying for boards. I kind of treated it the same as when I studied for the DAT. I ended up taking my boards in early January of my second year, and I studied about a week and a half during Christmas break of just kind of going non-stop studying every day for probably about 4 to 5 hours a day. And then after that period, I would study for maybe an hour or even sometimes just 45 minutes a night until the day I took my boards. And that worked really well for me. I passed. I did not pass the mock board the first time I took it, or the second time actually, or the third time. But that's okay. I mean, Dr. Gordon she likes to write hard questions for those exams, and I don't think that it really, you shouldn't take that score and translate it to how you're gonna do on the board just because it's so different. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Taylor. I had it in my head that I wanted to pass that mock board no matter what, so I took it 3 times. On the third time, I finally passed, but that was after an insane amount of studying, and I felt super prepared for the mock, did really well on it, but I realized after taking the real boards that the mock was pretty different in terms of the content, so it turned out that I had spent months studying to do really well in the mock, and the boards itself, my opinion is that you really can't study and know that much for the boards regardless. You're going to get so much information that you've never even seen before in your life, and there's nothing you can do to prepare for that, except for studying your dental anatomy, dental occlusion, and then Dr. Popowicz's whole class, the embryology and histology. That is my advice that I give everyone. Just review those 3 courses and use what you've already learned in school. Beyond that, I don't recommend studying as hard as I did.
Hello, I'm Victor, third year student. So I took the mock board once, did not pass it, and then looked for a 2-week break where I could study for like 5 days, take the test, and still have like 10 days off, so I wouldn't go crazy with school. So I ended up taking it this last June, and so I studied about 20 minutes a day for about 4 days a week for like the month and a half leading up to it, and then from Saturday to Wednesday before I took the board, I studied about 8 hours a day, pretty intense studying, and I passed. I thought that was good because, like Taylor said, I think the only way you can know everything on the boards is if you were to start studying the day 1 of dental school with like 6 different study sets and then some, and even then there'd probably still be stuff that you wouldn't know. So I just studied how you studied for the DAT, because if that's like the type of studying that got you a good enough score to get into dental school, that's what you need. So.
Hey, I'm David, also third year student. I did not have a structured schedule when studying for the boards. I kind of just signed up as soon as they cleared us to sign up because I didn't pass the mock. And so I took mine late January. I studied a little bit during winter break, not so much, just kind of did some dental decks. And then in the last 2 weeks, I did a lot of just like reviewing the material, shaking on like what Taylor was talking about, occlusion, embryo, dental anatomy. And then in the last 2 days, just crammed as much of the science as I could into my head.
Cool, I'm Vernon, and third year student as well. I didn't pass either of the mock boards that I took, and then I figured the third one wasn't really worth my time. Like they all said, I don't think it's really indicative of what score you'll actually get, and it is a very, very hard test. For me, studying, I studied about a month before. I took mine in January, And pretty much I just started studying the beginning of break, but I only did, maybe an hour a day leading up to it, and then I passed too, so that went pretty well.
Cool, and Ryan just joined us, and Ryan, to put you on the spot, we're just going over what your timeline for studying and taking the test was, and if you had a schedule, and if you took the mock first.
Yeah, I took the mock first, didn't pass any of them, so don't feel bad if that happens. I think personally, your timeline in studying doesn't actually exist until you actually sign up for the boards. Like, you can tell yourself you're going to study all you want, but until you actually purchase a date, it doesn't become real enough for you to actually start trying to study. So for myself, I think I did just a little bit of like studying for fun, like with Vernon, while he was studying for his boards. But it wasn't until I actually bought my date of the 23rd that I felt like the crunch time. I really need to study like hardcore.
Cool, thank you. Okay, let's start with you, Ryan, again, and then we'll go back this way. What was the single most helpful studies tool you used? And besides the single most helpful, what else did you use to study?
I thought that our school's lectures were actually really, really helpful, especially in dental anatomy, occlusion, and histology, because it covered a lot of the topics that I didn't know beforehand prior to dental school, and they went into such detail that if you truly understood the material, you could answer any question that was given to you on the board exam.
And then for me, I used, I think it's the Dental Board Mastery app. I paid, I think it was like $100 for the app, but you could probably share it between people. I know you can put it on like 2 or 3 phones at once. And then I think I've been transferring it to other people as they've been going. But that is what I use the most. The one caveat with that is the dental anatomy and occlusion stuff was really great. The science stuff was like, what is a mitochondria? That's not the question they're gonna ask you on the test. So to supplement that, I used the online study tools that they gave you with your Kaplan book. And those questions are really hard. So between those two, I thought it was a fair balance.
So the supplemental tools from the Kaplan book or the Kaplan book
So
itself?
what I did is the Kaplan book, I tried to read it, but it's 1,000 pages, and I figured by the time you get to the end, you've forgotten the beginning. So I just did the online questions. You can set them for 50 questions, and then I would go through that and the questions that I got wrong, or if I didn't understand why I got the answer correct, or why the other answers weren't wrong, I did a Google Doc, and I would write in all the information that I didn't know. And then every day before I started, I would review that 50 questions and then write the notes, and that was kind of my study schedule.
Awesome.
For me, I think the dental decks were really good for dental anatomy and occlusion. I also use Dr. Taz notes a lot for occlusion. And then for like the sciences, kind of just like go up what you know, and then for what I didn't know, there's this YouTube channel called Pass the Dental Boards. They basically literally summarize like the minimum you need to know for each of like the main science categories, like in biochem or in like pathology. So that was really nice just to kind of keep repeating like the things I needed to know foundationally.
And so I used the Dental Mastery app. I used it like on the bus, like when I was studying 20 minutes a day for like the 6 weeks before. I just like kind of go through 25 questions on the bus. And then like the 5 days before, I used the Kaplan online question set, and I got the idea from Vernon, where like I set it so like it would show me the answer if I like prompted it to. And then it also gives you the answer for like every question and why that would be right or why it would be wrong. So like, yeah, anything I didn't know, I'd write it down. And then like the 2 days before, that's all I just read through. Like I had 29 pages of notes. That's just what I read, and then that was about it.
Because I studied for so long, I used a variety of sources. I used the dental decks, which I ended up forgetting a lot of the information after I used it. So then I switched to the Kaplan QBank, and I would just take practice test after practice test, trying to get the 70 percentile score that you need to pass the mock. And so I'd write down every single answer that I got wrong, and that would then help me remember the incorrect answers for longer. That worked really well to pass the mock. However, I don't think that really translated over into the boards as well. Like I said, you just need to know those 3 classes from your dental education and then have paid attention during school for the most part. But if you are looking to pass the mock, I would really recommend just using that QBank, going through those tests as often as you can. And then the first aid book is very helpful for short summaries. I memorized the majority of that book because it's a lot less dense than Kaplan book that you're given. That just has too much material, so it's nice for a big picture, but in terms of memorizing details, I'd use the NBD first aid book.
Yeah, I pretty much did just a variety of what everybody else did here. I used the Dental Dex was my primary source of material, supplemented with the Kaplan QBank, and then I also made sure to review, like Taylor said a couple times now, dental anatomy classes, notes, occlusion notes, and Dr. Popwick's notes. There's also a YouTube video, like 300 dental anatomy facts. Is that the one? That was super helpful. That guy goes through just like 300 random dental anatomy facts, and I'm pretty sure like every single one of my dental anatomy questions from the boards was in that video at some point. So I highly recommend that.
Awesome. And Taylor started to touch on this, but if we start with you, Micah, what did you try studying with any resources that didn't end up working for you? And what were they, and why didn't they work for you?
I think kind of what Taylor has already said a little bit about the Kaplan book is there's so much material in there. When we first, because the school gave us all those books for free, which was cool. But I started to read that book and was just like, this is too much information. The Dex was my favorite way that the information was presented to me. Just really concise, like bullet points, what you need to know. If you are having trouble like getting the bigger picture on stuff and like aren't understanding something at all, the Kaplan book is a good way to go. But other than that, I didn't really touch it.
Cool. Can just move on to Vernon then?
Victor.
Sorry.
It's alright. I'm not as old as he is. So I didn't use a lot to say, because I kind of learned from all these guys, because I was the last one to take it, I think, out of us. And so I really liked the Mastery app because I'd use it on the bus. And then like when I was trying to like crunch time to study, like I was able to sit down and actually use my computer to study. But yeah, I think going back to Kaplan book, like originally in January, like when they were all getting ready to take it, I tried to read some of the chapters for it, and I think I got through like 80 pages and then just didn't touch it until April. So it kind of like turned me off on studying, and then I decided I wanted to do it over the 2-week break, so I just never touched it again.
Yeah, I really like the Mastery app just because you can do it on your phone. So if you're like commuting to school, then it's just nice to pass the time, get some questions in. I also really liked the Dental Board's YouTube videos just because it was like really concise, and I didn't use Kaplan at all. Yeah.
Pretty much exactly what they all said.
Okay.
I think the question that you guys need to ask yourselves is, do you want to know 50% of 100% of the material or 100% of 50% of the material? Because going off what Mike said, you could know absolutely everything, but if you just know it on surface level, they're not going to ask you straight up fact for fact. It's going to be like apply the knowledge and actually understand the mechanism. So you might as well focus on the things you do know. You know, if you've been paying attention at all in dental school, you should know how the occlusion works, know how the teeth grow and come to shape into form, things like that. And then again, what Victor said, doing the Dental Mastery app really just helps reinforce those answers that you're going to be asked multiple times on the board exam.
Yeah, I studied way too much and knew a little bit about absolutely everything. And when I was sitting there taking that test, it did not do me any good. I could not guarantee that I was getting a correct answer. I recognized a lot, but if you don't know it at 100% level, it's worthless to have that information in your brain.
Cool, thank you. And then starting with you, Ryan, when will you know that you're ready to take the test?
You won't. When I signed up for my boards, I signed up for it immediately. I think I took it a week right after finals, or it's like after my last final ended was my 2 days later was my board exam. you're not going to feel ready. You're going to feel absolutely terrible and crummy about it, but you know a lot more than you think you do. And I think until, you're going to go into it thinking you could have studied more, you could have done better, but in the end, trust yourself, trust what you know, trust your education, and I think you'll do just fine.
Pretty much exactly what Ryan said.
Cool.
Yeah, what Ryan said, and then again off of Taylor, you just study like the big dental topics, like they're obviously going to test you more on those. So anatomy and occlusion, like if you can get those down for sure, that's an absolute must. And everything else, just do your best, but I guess you'll never feel 100% ready.
No, and I think the key is not to like worry yourself out, because that test is like, it's so big that if I think your like mindset going into it is just as important as your however long you took to prep for it. Because if you're sitting there like the morning of and you're absolutely worried and you're stressing out, like I think you're going to do much worse than if you sit down. And for me, I was just like, I've prepared like how I wanted to prepare. I'm just going to do it and get it done. And I don't think I was ready to take the test until I hit like I accept these terms and conditions, and then the screen popped up and I was starting to click on answers. Like you don't feel ready until you're there, because you can't be 100% ready for it.
And even when you are there and you start the test, you should expect the feeling of, I've never felt so dumb in my entire life, regardless of how much you study. So just know that that's a feeling you're going to have, and all you can do is just power through that like 4 to 8 hour period, depending on how long it takes you to take the test.
And don't feel bad if you finish at like 11:45. That's when I finished and I passed. So
Is 11:45 early or late?
That's pretty early.
Okay.
What, 8
yeah, it
to
started at
11?
8, and then they give you, I think it's
Till 3.
they give you till 3 or 4. I think it's 2 4-hour sections with a 30-minute
Wow.
break.
Yeah.
I finished it in like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
I don't know if this point was touched on, but there's no like tangible benefit from passing the mock boards early and taking your boards and forcing yourself to get it done earlier. If you do, let's say you don't pass the mock boards, you can choose to take it, or you are allowed to take it after fall quarter, after you guys take mind, brain, and behavior. So there's really nothing like special except for you get to take it earlier. Study at your own pace. If you feel confident taking it later, do it later. Some people want vacations, some people have weddings, so you have your own schedule, you have your own lifestyle that you want to adhere to. Don't try not to let the others that are taking it early affect your decision on how you want to study for it.
The big draw to taking it early is that if you want to take it over Christmas break, which is your biggest break, then you have to pass that mock ahead of time. Otherwise, they do not clear you to sign up until like December 17th, I believe.
Until grades have been posted.
And until grades have been posted for MBB and life cycle and reproduction. And in that case, there's a small chance you could still find a time slot to sign up for the very end of break, but it's not guaranteed.
I took mine, I think it was the second week back. So I studied during that break, just knowing that they would pass us, and then essentially punted the first week of school to study for boards
Okay.
and took it then. The other thing I'd say too is that take one mock board, if anything, because it's going to be a reality check. I don't know what everybody's confidence levels are. I usually am fairly confident in my abilities in my studying, but I can tell you when I got my first score back, which wasn't terrible, but I clearly didn't pass it. Yeah, it was a bit of a wake-up call, so just my suggestion, I suppose.
I think the biggest thing too for like knowing when you're ready to take the boards is A, you won't ever be ready, but B, you should make yourself feel ready. Like Victor was saying, make a plan, finish your plan, and then you're ready. I mean, we've all taken the DAT, we all know how to study, we're all in dental school, so it's not like a huge daunting thing. The boards are hard, so make sure you're prepared. But as soon as you've executed your study plan, you should be ready.
That's on that note is don't move your test date.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
unless
not
a
like the
family
DAT?
thing. I mean, it's going to cost you, I don't know if
It's $100.
It's $100 to
I
move
didn't
it.
move mine, but I know how much it costs.
And just like Micah said, you have your study plan, you'll get to the end, and you don't think you're ready. You just have to tell yourself that that's about as ready as you're going to get. And if you move the test out another 3 weeks, as soon as that thought crosses your mind, you're going to back off your study, at least I will,
Yeah,
and you'll slack off, and you'll be essentially the exact same point, $100 less than 3 weeks later.
exactly.
So take it when you finish your study plan and you'll be ready.
And
And
odds
you'll
are you'll pass.
And
Most
you'll
people pass. Some people have only studied for about 2 days and they still pass. So odds are you're going to pass.
Great.
And starting with Micah again, is there one subject that you wish you studied more for?
No, honestly.
Okay.
I feel like if you review occlusion and dental anatomy and Dr. Popwick's class, those are the three things that'll get you pretty high in your grades there. Those are the ones that I reviewed the most. If I could have chosen something to review more, I mean, maybe just all of our sciences, but in order to do that, you have to spend a ton of time reviewing a ton of material, so it's not super worth it. Just make sure you're paying attention in class while you're taking it. Looking back on it. I mean, you're gonna, like Taylor was saying, you're gonna come across questions in the board that you don't even know what they're talking about. It'll be a question and you're gonna say, I literally have no idea what this is, and you're gonna choose one, and that's fine. That happened to me many, many times during my boards, and I passed. You can't prepare for everything. So looking back, I mean, I would love to have prepared for those, but there's no way I could have known to prepare for them.
I had quite a few pharmacology questions, but that is such a vast subject that I don't think it'll be worth your time. But I know those I was just I have no idea. I started maybe learn the suffixes of the different groups, and then I'll be your best bet at getting an educated guess. But yeah, and then the basic sciences, but that's such a wide subject that if you're not already well versed in them, I mean, you could start now, but I don't think it's worth your time.
I'm on the same page.
I would have read more into Oda's handout, actually. Although her material isn't directly tested upon on the boards, it was very helpful in terms of just knowing what types of viruses cause what classic symptoms in children. I had a lot of children questions, and I was like, I narrowed down to two, and I was ready to pick one. But I would focus more on connecting my material, so going off what Micah said about embryology, and then what you guys will learn in the fall about cranial nerves, just kind of knowing you're going to learn there's going to be different types of innervation, like sympathetic, parasympathetic, all this other random stuff, but knowing how it develops from the embryo stage into the adult stage and what it actually does, with the focus on head and neck anatomy, I think that's a better use of your time rather than studying them as independent subjects.
And for all the subjects you study, the boards are nice in that they really do tend to choose the questions that are mostly head and neck relevant. So keep that in mind when you're studying all of your diseases, the ones that aren't as relevant to dentistry. I found that the boards really stuck to the dentally relevant material.
Great. And then this one I think was more asking and trying to compare this to how we studied for the DAT, where someone was asking, was there any subject that you could not improve in regardless of how hard you studied? So we can start with Ryan.
Microbiology. There's just way too much stuff to know about micro, groups, toxins, different adhesins and stuff. That just wrecked me on the boards, and I didn't bother putting in more effort into something that I was like, if I know what I know, and I'm going to go with it.
Okay.
I think on that note, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and so I have a background in micro, so I didn't find that as challenging as, say, Ryan does, but Ryan is a neurobio major, and so he's much better at that, and I'm actually really bad at that. So I guess the moral here is that I would try to stick with what you know. Don't think, okay, I don't know micro, and now I need to dive way into micro and forget about everything else. Try to focus on things that you know and really solidify those, and then go back and add on to that.
Yeah, go for it. I think all those apps and that's the nice way as online learning things is they tell you what subjects you're not very good at. Because I was a finance major, so I didn't have any biology or science specialty. And so for me, I just knew I had to focus on that a lot more than probably most people. So I mean, it's just you use that. If you have any question of what you need to work on most, take a couple of those, take the mocks, I think they break it down. And also just focus on those online stuff, because you're not gonna be able to get that without using an online or application tool that will actually say, hey, you got a 30% in this section, but 80s everywhere else. Unless you go through it manually, that's just a waste of your time.
Anyone else? And then this is the second to last question, and I think that you guys all mainly touched on this, but if anyone has anything to add, but is it better to study a little every day for a long time or a ton in 1 month before, or a combination? You guys all touched on that. but-
Combination.
Combo. I think it's whatever works best for you. I would say that this is not a test you can cram for. You know, if you study the week before and that's it, and you pass, congrats to you. Or 2 days before, whatever it happens to be. But that said, is that realize it is a big test, and if you are a crammer, try to plan for that. I'm not, so I took the longer approach. But I know some people, we have a whole diverse group of timelines, so, you know.
Well, dental school itself should have been your studying for the most part. Yeah, so you really can't cram too much in.
Well, and I think too, like if you do decide to cram or like you don't do like any prep and you do fail it, you're going to feel pretty bad. And you're like, well, if I just would have started a week earlier. Yeah.
That being said, if you fail, it's only another $440. It's not that big of a deal.
Time is money. You could have saved time, weeks and weeks and weeks of not studying. So
I guess on that note of if you fail it, like, so now you have it that you failed it once and you passed it, right? Like, is that big of a deal, or is it a really big deal?
Just for the school.
I don't think you tell people.
You don't tell
you just don't, but like, it's not the end of the world. You just pay them at $440. Pick
Yeah,
your-
that's
you gotta
important.
pass it.
When you graduate, nobody will know, but the school will know.
Yeah.
And you.
And they,
And you. And your pride.
probably your classmates when they're like, why are you still studying? You took that
Okay.
like last week, but yeah, it's not gonna go like on your record or count against you if you're trying to go on or whatever it happens to be.
Great. Okay, and then just any one piece of advice that you wish you were given before studying take one or part one of the boards, which you guys have mainly touched on, but any last parting words?
Pay attention in class.
Do it.
Yeah. Go to class.
Go to class and pay attention.
I think just like we all said, you're not gonna feel ready like a test at school to take it, but like Victor said, have the right mindset and realize that we all passed. I think I haven't heard of anybody who failed it, so it's definitely doable. Believe in yourself and you'll get it done.
One thing that I really liked too that I did that was some advice from some upperclassmen is the day before my boards, I didn't do any studying, and I just relaxed and kind of had some fun and tried to not think about them. That just kind of helped my mindset going into it. I know everybody doesn't do that, but I thought it was a really cool thing to do.
wish I had done that. Studying didn't help.
Psych yourself out.
I went through my notes that like I took on all the questions I'd previously gotten wrong and did that until about 11 in the morning. And like took my dog for a walk and hung out and grilled and had a beer and just kind of relaxed. Yeah, 'cause I mean, it's like there's nothing you can do at the 12 hours before. If you do, like it's just going to freak you out more. It's just kind of like at that point, it's like you have to be ready.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I'd say is just stick with what you know studying wise. Like if you know what works for you when you study, just like keep doing that. No need to like start exploring new study strategies now and then like put yourself another couple weeks behind because you're trying new things. I think you got here this far because you study well, so just stick with that.
I would just prepare for your day. Like, make sure you have your IDs. Make sure you have, what you need. Your car has gas. Make sure everything goes smoothly that day because you don't want any unnecessary stressors to delay your ability to take the test.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I'm sure my class is really appreciative.